Hi, I'm Julian, Baird, photographer and filmmaker from Devon, and welcome to Discovering Dartmoor. A few years ago, I asked myself the question, what do I know about Dartmoor? What makes this place so unique? And when I couldn't answer those questions, I made a commitment to myself to not only see more of Dartmoor, but to learn more about it. And from that commitment, Discovering Dartmoor was born, a 5-part video series where I explore and photograph 24 of Dartmoor's finest locations and speak to some of Dartmoor's most passionate ambassadors so I can find out for myself what makes Dartmoor so special. Coming up in this episode, I meet some pigs, I take a closer look at some of Dartmoor's special geology, I find a strange circular hole in a rock, and I visit a hydroelectric power station. But let's start this episode with a visit to Challacombe farm, where I chat to Mark Owen about his farm and his relationship with the land. Dartmoor has been populated by humans for thousands of years. We have literally shaped the landscape, and much of that has been done through a long and rich tradition of farming. And that tradition continues today, with farming being such an integral part of Dartmoor life. So it gives me great excitement to say I'm joined today by Mark from Challacombe farm. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you so much for inviting me along to see your beautiful farm here.
Yeah, it's cracking here, so I'm very lucky to live here.
You are very lucky. This is a great spot here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a favourite spot to just sort of sit and watch the swallows come and land on a pond.
Is that a natural pond, or is that something you've built?
We built it about 30 years ago, which is a sort of boggy hollow. It's the overflow from our water supply, but we basically dug it out, put the banks up, and it took a couple of years, but then sealed and created this lovely pond, which is just...
I imagine it attracts quite a lot of insect life and other wildlife.
It's heaving with tadpoles a couple of weeks ago. Also the swallows and the martins, because the mud on the edge, the martins can use it, and the swallows for building their nests. Loads of dragonflies. Yeah, there's always something buzzing around.
But I guess this goes back to kind of the ethos of why you're into farming. It's about managing the landscape and working with it rather than against it. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do here on Challacombe farm?
Yeah, because the farm is so special for wildlife and history. Most of the farm is either a county wildlife site for its, as we say, for wildlife, featureless also for wildlife, or scheduled nature monument because of the vast amount of history we've got here, which still is preserved. It's quite unusual. And so, with the help of agri-environment schemes, we now manage the farm to try and conserve all those. That's our primary aim, with food production being a byproduct of that.
So it's always about balance, isn't it, with these things? Yeah,
we're sort of quite unusual in terms of, we are very high up here. Stuff doesn't grow that well. And so for us to reduce, sort of turn the spigot down on food production and turn it up on nature side, we don't lose much in the way of food production to be able to really maximise what we can do for nature.
Can you tell me a little bit about how this came about then?
Yeah, this little henge is basically when we were putting the pond in, we wanted a seat, and rather than using timber, which is rock, we sort of looking around for bits of rock. And the two pedestals it came on, just put them down, and then carefully lift the top. And normally when you put a rock on top of this, it will rock. But this one just does not rock. It did not move since it's been
it's great, isn't it?
25 years ago. It's just meant to be there.
It must be a lovely place to come and have your coffee or your evening gin or whatever. This is.
Yeah, it's a lovely place to sit and watch stuff. And we're right by the bridleway here, so we get lots of people come and sit and have their lunch here or whatever
and enjoy it. Because you quite encourage people, because this is a bridleway and you're quite.
Yeah, there's a bridleway just there. This is a permissive bridleway. Most of the farm is open access.
So you're quite happy for people to come through and.
Through the agri-environment scheme, people's taxes pay us, the neighbours, to live here. So we feel, it's only right that they can come and enjoy it and get the most out of it. So we do what we can to.
Having a look about here, it's great to walking about here. Right, anyway, so shall we go and have a look at some of the livestock that you've got?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah,
let's go then. Go on. I can't wait to share the rest of my conversation with Mark with you. His approach to farming Dartmoor and his relationship with the land is eye-opening. But before we return to Challacombe farm, let's head to West Dartmoor, where I take a very pleasant evening's walk to Pew Tor. My walk to Pew Tor starts just off the main road that runs between Tavistock and Princetown. It's yet another beautiful evening, and I take a little time to take in the view. About halfway to Pew Tor, I cross a leat and find a stone cross called Windy Post. It's thought to be at least 500 years old. A little further on, I reach Feather Tor, from where I can see Pew Tor just a short distance away. It's not long before I'm making the short ascent to Pew Tor. The view from the top is outstanding. Welcome to Pew Tor, and what a tour it is as well. As you can see behind me, it's quite an expansive tour, but yeah, it continues further back there. So I'm hoping actually with all this variety, I'm going to be able to capture maybe a photograph or two of this rather interesting looking tour. But it is a popular tour both now with tourists and actually way back in the 19th century. It was discovered it had quite a lot of fine-grained granite, which attracted local stonecutters and masons. And it attracted so much so that they actually thought at one point the tour might disappear. They quarried so much of it. They had to eventually draw a boundary line around it to stop people quarrying too close to the tour. But it does still remain popular today, and I can understand why. The views around here are absolutely fantastic, and it's those views I'm hoping to leverage now to actually, just as the sun's peeking out, to get some nice photographs of this rather spectacular tour. I also discover a boundary marker in the middle of Pew Tor. The way the evening was panning out here at Pew Tor, I had envisaged finishing this particular location with me sitting on a rock looking out to some glorious sunset. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. The sun has disappeared behind a big bank of cloud. But not to worry, I did get some nice pictures before that happened. The light was nice and warm and soft, and I got some pictures that made the journey worthwhile. I mean, coming to explore a new area is always worthwhile, and having a look around Pew Tor certainly did make that journey worthwhile. So rather than sitting on the rock and looking at the sunset in the distance, I'm going to head that way back to the car. I'll see you at the next one. I really love that part of Dartmoor, and if you've watched the previous episodes, you'll have seen me visit the other nearby tours such as King's Tor and Ingra Tor. And in the next episode, I'll visit another close by tour, Vixen Tor. But let's head east and back to Challacombe Farm, where we'll pick up our conversation with Mark. We were going to talk about cattle, but Mark stops along the way to point out something interesting. So we're just on our way to have a look at the cattle, but we stopped off here because you've spotted something interesting that you might want to tell me about. What are these kind of plateaus or lines in the landscape here?
Yeah, these are basically from medieval times, and sort of mentioned the farm is full of history from Bronze Age and the tin mining and everything else, but this is the main feature why so much of the landscape in the farm is designated. And these are strip lynches, which are basically terraces like you have in Nepal now to make it easier to farm on a hillside. And this is actually one of our least steep hills. They go up both sides of the valley up there where it's a lot steeper, and it's even a bit iffy on the quad going up there. But it would have been ploughed with an oxen in medieval times. So the action of the ploughing would have moved the soil down one way and create a bit of terracing. But also, if you dig anything on Dartmoor, you're going to hit rocks. So my suspicion is also the rocks were put to the side and built a wall so that in future years it gets a little bit flatter and a little bit easier to do. It always amazes me how much work, lifetimes of work has gone into shaping this landscape. you know, these guys ploughing, however long it must have taken to create all these, and there's, you know, acres and acres of it all the way up through. And then we've got the Bronze Age reeds going down where they built the banks going down. We've got sort of corn ditches to keep stock in and out. Yeah, every generation has made
there's
a
little
mark on the
clues to the
landscape.
history dotted all about, really, isn't there?
Yeah.
If you have a look.
Yeah, and so we're lucky sort of being here long enough that, you know, we've had lots of archaeologists and people
Yeah.
there to sort of point out
Tell you what they are.
yeah, and what the stuff actually looks like, other than just being humps and bumps in the ground.
Great,
So.
right, I can see the castle. Shall we go and have a look then?
Yeah.
Come on then. Mark, so we come down to have a look at some of your cows. In fact, we've got the head of the family here.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about this breed and in particular this bull maybe?
He's a chap called Duke Silver. He's a Murray Grey bull, born not so far from here, just over the hill. He's really nice bull because he's lovely and quiet, as you can see. Produces good meat, but for us, one of the key factors is his calves come out really small.
Yeah.
So they calve really easily. Most of our cows calve outside, and we may not see him for a couple of days. So we don't. And he runs with the cows all year round. So most of our calves do appear in the spring as a natural thing, but they can appear anytime, and we never shut them in. So having small calves is vital for us.
So yeah, you let your cows almost roam the land, don't you? They're all grass fed, is that right?
They're all totally grass fed. We're organic. Basically, as a farm, we try and minimise any inputs we bring in, so that we can be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And the cattle, their main role here, as well as producing beef, is to manage the landscape, particularly the wetlands, where you need cattle in to eat the coarse grasses, which then opens up the ground for orchids.
Oh, okay.
And devil's bit scabious and other sort of rare plants and flowers.
Again, it's all about that balance and that life cycle and helping everything.
Yeah, so they need to be, we'll have a look at the bogs later, but they need to be in there for about 6 weeks of the year. And then they need to be somewhere else for the other, you know, what is it, 44 weeks of the year, oh, 46 weeks of the year, that's right, so they graze extensively all the time.
Well, they're having a lovely time today anyway, don't it? It's a nice pleasant day for them.
Yeah.
But I noticed that we've got everyone's favourite topic of conversation, cow pats.
Yeah.
But these play an important role in the landscape as well, don't they?
Yeah, cow parts, you know, play a really vital role for the biodiversity on the farm. They're sort of the starting of that food cycle, food web, in terms of feeding. If we turn one over, what you do is get right inside, and you see all the holes in the top, but then you can see some of the little beetles and things.
There's insects and stuff living inside.
Yeah, and they will be breaking up the pat, taking the nutrients down in the soil, but also providing food for birds. You know, here around us, there's always tweeting with birds. So it's just ways, and the key thing, one thing to do to sort of help that is to not use ivermectin wormers, because they're very persistent, they're very effective, but they can basically end up sterilising a bit of soil around each pat, which over long term is not good.
So the more things you can do naturally, just generally the better it is for the animals and for the and for the landscape.
Yeah, we've got animals which are sort of mostly sort of bred on the farm and have built up natural immunity to most things. And that's always the problem with, you know, we're pretty much a closed herd, so we don't bring in animals on. With the risk of them not being able to cope with the conditions, and you know, things like red water, which is borne by ticks, is a real problem on Dartmoor. So yeah, it's trying to keep everything in balance.
And animal welfare is very important to you as well, isn't it?
Yeah. We want our animals to sort of have a natural life as possible. That's why we went for the Greener World sort of accreditation of animal certification, because not only is it all the standard sort of animal welfare issues, but they have to actually be able to exhibit natural behaviours, natural life cycles. So, you know, outside roaming as they would do normally, even in the winter, they will only they're fed indoors and have shelter indoors, but they have access to the outdoors all year round.
They look like they're having a nice time, and it's like I say, a nice pleasant day for them to be. And you've got a few calves here as well? Yeah,
lots of calves from this year. They're sort of a month or two old, so they're sort of growing well. They're
right. Well, I think I better go and rescue my camera because it's getting very popular with the cows, and then we'll go and look at something else.
Yeah, they're definitely taking an interest in it.
Yeah, they are.
So
great, thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello. Those cows seem to be very interested in my camera and tripod. Fortunately, I did manage to rescue my gear, and later on in this episode, I'll be talking to Mark about the flora and fauna of Challacombe Farm. Let's return to my walking adventures first though, and the southern edge of Dartmoor, where I discovered Dartmoor's most featureless landscape. My journey to Quickbeam Hill starts at the River Avon, just up from Shipley Bridge on the southwestern edge of Dartmoor. Discovering Dartmoor has been full of surprises, but sharing the road with pigs wasn't something I expected. The road that follows the River Avon is part of the Dartmoor Way, but I'm soon leaving that behind and heading up into the hills. It's another glorious evening on Dartmoor. It's not long before I leave the road and I join the old Zeal Tor Tramway. There seems to be a lot of pigs about this evening. It's a nice walk along the old tramway and there are some fine views, but to make the walk a bit more interesting, I've decided to combine it with a walk to Quickbeam Hill. The Zeal Tor Tramway was built in 1847 to transport peat cuttings, but it only operated for 3 years. Though the tramway is long gone, you can still find evidence of its existence along the route. High up in the moor, I make a left turn towards Quickbeam Hill. However, with no obvious point of interest, I have to rely on my GPS to find the summit. There's no path and the walking is a bit tricky. I finally make it, but there's little to see apart from open moorland. It's pretty featureless. There is something I want to see though, so I decide to move on. A short but difficult walk away, I find some water. Despite it being the only thing worth photographing for miles around, I can still appreciate the form and structure of this remote body of water. The walk back to the path is difficult, but thanks to some stone posts, navigating on this clear summer's evening isn't too challenging. It's getting close to sunset and the walking has been difficult, so I'm relieved to be returning to the Zeal Tor Tramway. Quickbeam Hill might be lacking in grandeur, but you can't beat a walk on the open moorland. I probably wouldn't have ever walked to Quickbeam Hill if it hadn't been for Discovering Dartmoor. But despite the starkness of the landscape up there, it was still beautiful, though probably less so if it was raining. We'll return to the glorious weather on Challacombe farm though, and my conversation with Mark in just a short while. But first, here's a quick message from me. I just want to quickly interrupt this episode of Discovering Dartmoor to say a big thanks to you, the people that are watching. Discovering Dartmoor for me is a passion project, not a commercial venture or a profit-making exercise. Everything that went into this series was produced by me. All the planning, research, writing, scouting, on-location filming, interviews, photography and editing was all done by just me. I even did my own hair, makeup and wardrobe. But the best bit of all that work is that I get to share Discovering Dartmoor with you on YouTube for free forever. And if you've got this far through the episode, it probably means you're enjoying it. And if you are, then that makes all that hard work worth it. But you might also be saying, Julian, how can I show my support for this wonderful series? Well, there are 3 simple things that you can do that would mean so much to me, and that's like, comment and share. So if you are enjoying this episode, you'll find the like button just underneath the video. Press that, and then just below that, you can also leave me a comment, preferably a nice one. But the most important and best thing you can do is share this video. Let your friends, family and colleagues know about the series. Talk to them, WhatsApp them, share it in a Facebook group. However you do it, it would mean the world to me. But if you really like Discovering Dartmoor and you want to show your appreciation by buying me a cup of coffee, then that would be truly amazing. Just below this video, next to the like button, you'll find the thanks button. And by clicking that, you can make a one-time donation that, in all likelihood, I will actually spend in coffee. I love coffee. As a landscape photographer that loves photographing sunrise, I depend on coffee. It keeps me going. But please do like, comment and share. Right, thank you for listening. Let's get back to the episode. So Mark, your farming life's not all about livestock, is it? It's about managing the landscape as well, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. This is one of the sort of most special landscape or habitats on the farm, which is called Rhôs pasture.
Right.
Basically, it's a wet valley bog. You can see how squidgy it is on the foot, and it's brilliant for the orchids. That looks amazing this time of year.
It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, there's hundreds, thousands of them through here. But it's also really important for a butterfly, the marsh artillery butterfly, which is it's a rare butterfly, but it's got quite a specialist life cycle. Its caterpillars will only eat one plant, devil's bit scabious, and they're also not very good flyers.
Right.
So we've had advice along neighbouring farms about how we best manage these areas to help the marsh artillery. So specifically grazing, you want it to graze sort of late summer after everything's seeded, to try and reduce the amount of the coarse grass and malini, which you see over a lot of them all, which will then swamp out everything else. And the best thing to do that is either cattle or ponies, because they will quite happily get in here. The little footprints will create little pools for seed to go in, but really suppressing. So they're in here for 6 or 8 weeks, basically knock everything back. And other things like we do is create gaps in the willow, because the butterflies aren't very keen at flying up and over, so having little holes through.
Oh, so they can go through to the next part.
Go through to the next bit, rather than being constrained in one little area. And then, but having the willows there quite good, because they're not very good flyers. Also on windy days, they've got sheltered bits they can still.
They get a little bit of a break from the wind.
And little sun traps, stopping things like the birch sort of creeping in, because they will dry out over time and just swamp it, so you lose the habitat. So there's lots of sort of tweaking. Big scale gardening, basically trying to manage the habitats for butterflies and other insects.
I had no idea that this kind of stuff was on Dartmoor, because you just think of rolling hills, don't you, and tors and trees, but to know that these beautifully delicate flowers are here as well.
And these are a result of grazing, but the right amount of grazing, right animals, right time, right place. And that's always the challenge with grazing Dartmoor, is how you control it on the big hills and getting the right numbers.
So talking of grazing, I think we're chasing a flock of sheep at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, they broke in. They've been a couple of hours, so we'll pop them out. So.
Yeah, should we go up and see what they're up to?
Yep.
Come on then, let's go.
Yep.
So Mark, we finally caught up with the sheep. They're quite hard to corner, and they're not keen on being in camera, are they? No,
they're a bit hot and bothered at the moment. They're going to get shorn next week, so with weather coming on so hot, you can see wool is already starting to lift, so it really is time to get them shorn.
About time to have them sheared.
Yep.
So what type of sheep are these, or do you have multiple breeds here?
They're all pretty much Shetland crossed with an Icelandic ram.
Right.
So they've got sort of quite small sheep, come in multiple colours. They're just really nice sheep to have, really.
That's a couple of nice little lambs. So are they must be quite well suited to Dartmoor life then? Yeah,
they're obviously from where they come from originally. This is quite soft for them.
I guess there's not as much wind.
Not as much wind, not as much rain. So, and the main reason we keep them is because this is a primary archaeological landscape. The management prescription is to keep it clear of vegetation, particularly gorse. And these guys love eating gorse, so they will nibble that. So they're slow growing, and they produce small lambs, but when they are ready to be eaten, they are delicious. Shouldn't tell them that. And also their wool is lovely as well, in terms of they've got really long, fine, silky wool.
So you farm for two reasons, I guess. The wool is one thing, and the meat's the other.
Yes. I say the primary role is conservation, but after that, it's meat and wool and sheepskins. So.
And again, they're well looked after here, aren't they?
Yeah, again, the sheep are out all year round, so they're free roaming. We've got big paddocks, that keep them in. So they've always got shade and shelter and more access to water. So yeah, the key things, they're going to be a happy life.
It was amazing walking about Challacombe Farm with Mark and to see how he is managing the land to support the flora and fauna of the area. Such a beautiful place. Well, we will return to my conversation with Mark a bit later in this episode, but first of all, let's head to a tour near Meadows, which has some very interesting geology. Good morning and welcome to Roos Tor. As you've seen, I've been here for a little while. I made my ascent up here from the road in the dark, had a head torch on, came up through Middle Staple Tor and Great Staple Tor to come here and watch the sunrise, because there aren't many better things in life than to come up in Dartmoor and watch the sunrise and see the start of a new day. Absolutely magical. But I wasn't here just to look at the sunrise or to take pictures. I've come here to look at a couple of other interesting things that are around Roos Tor. The first thing I want to talk about is this lump of rock here, which may not sound particularly interesting, but this smooth bit of rock here in amongst this rough granite, this is called a xenolith. It begins with X. I bet you were wondering how I was going to get X into this Discovering Dartmoor series. Well, this is how I'm going to do it. So this smooth bit of rock here, this is what's called country rock, which is just another name for the native rock of the area. Then when the molten granite came up from the Earth's crust, it mixed in with this country rock, and as well as doing lots of other interesting geological things, it broke bits of it off and that got mixed up inside the granite. And then when that cooled, those bits of country rock got protruded out here, and then eventually once the tors got worn down and they became visible, that's now why you can see these lumps of rocks, these smooth lumps of rock here protruding out of this granite. These are called xenoliths. Amazing. I had to do a little bit of research to find out about these and how to spot them, but that's what Discovering Dartmoor is all about for me. Morning to be out. The conditions are ideal for walking. I've come to the other side, the north side of Roos Tor here, and the views have really opened up. I can see the open moorland and the rolling hills. I can see Great Mist Tor. I've got, well, that'll be Fir Tor over there, Great Lynx Tor, Ger Tor. The views are just outstanding. There's a little path here and I feel like following it and just keep on walking all day, but I can't, unfortunately. But I will tell you about why I'm exactly here and why we've got this boundary stone here. So this isn't a boundary stone in the sense that some of the other ones I've looked at, which have been parish boundary stones. These are quarry boundary marking stones. The original one here, with a little circle and the line through it, these were put around the area here to indicate where people were allowed to quarry and where they weren't. Because there was a genuine worry that people would quarry away the tors, because this tor here is also part of a collection of tors that were quarried around here. The other one, Pew Tor, which I've been to as well. And then later on, the Duke of Bedford, that's why it's got a B in here, came along and erected these bigger ones here. And they're very, very clear. You can see them, they make a sort of a circle around the area there. And I'm glad people had the foresight to kind of put these markers in and prevent people quarrying away those tors, because that would have been a real shame if they had been quarried away. Anyway, I am now going to head back to the car, but this is not the end of this episode. I've got one more thing I want to show you. I'll see you in a minute. Welcome back. Right, just to give you a bit of reference to where I am, I've got Great Staple Tor up there, middle staple tor there. And what I'd spotted on the OS map was a tinner's hut. And this is it here, 17th century, I believe. They used to take tin from the open streams around here. And obviously they needed somewhere to shelter because you're pretty exposed out in the wilds of Dartmoor here. So big, thick stone walls. I think this is probably a fireplace because it's got a chimney coming up the top there, so that would be there for cooking food or just keeping warm. You imagine it had a roof on you. It would probably offer a reasonable amount of protection from the elements, because let's face it, doing that kind of work in the 17th century would have been really hard graft. But that's it from the Roos Tor area for me. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to sharing some more Dartmoor discoveries in the next one. I'll see you in a bit. I think my visit to Roos Tor is a perfect example of why I've made Discovering Dartmoor. Researching and finding those xenoliths is something I would never have done before. Now, I'm by no means an expert in geology, but just having a little bit of knowledge goes a long way to deepening my connection with Dartmoor. We're going to rejoin my conversation with Mark in a minute, and he's another person with a deep connection to Dartmoor. But before we do, here's a quick message from me. I just want to interrupt this episode of Discovering Dartmoor to talk to you about the photography of Discovering Dartmoor. Throughout my Discovering Dartmoor journey, I've been capturing landscape photographs of the locations I have visited, some of which you will have already seen in this episode. And while I am very proud to share my Discovering Dartmoor landscape photographs in this video series, for me, the best way to view any photograph is in the printed format. We're all used to scrolling through photographs on social media platforms, but viewing a photograph in printed format is a totally different experience. It's a richer, more engaging experience. And that's why I'm incredibly excited to let you know that I've collated all 55 landscape photographs from the Discovering Dartmoor series and published them in this small softcover book, or as it's more commonly known these days, a zine. All 55 landscape photographs from the video series are included, from Arms Tor to Yes Tor and everything in between. The zine is printed professionally using high quality papers on both the cover and inner pages, ensuring my photographs are displayed in the best possible way. There's also an introduction written by myself and a foreword that has been written by Max Piper. Max has a deep connection with Dartmoor and is also the author of the book East Dartmoor's Lesser Known Tours, so I was delighted when he agreed to write the foreword for my publication. You'll also see Max feature in one of the Discovering Dartmoor episodes if you haven't seen him already. Landscape photography is my passion, and being able to publish this collection of Discovering Dartmoor photographs is one of the highlights of producing this series. If you'd like to purchase a copy, then just head to discoveringdartmoor.com, where you can order one today. Now, one final thing, if you're looking for something a bit bigger, such as a print to hang on your wall, then there is also a limited collection of Discovering Dartmoor photographs to purchase as individual prints. Again, just head to discoveringdartmoor.com for more details. Thank you for your time, and now back to the episode. So Mark, we've come to another body of water, but this is another man-made pond we've got here. But there's a story behind this though, isn't there?
Yeah, we built this one about 5-6 years ago now, where we had a problem invited by the Environment Agency, right, that gravel was being washed down into the stream, which is sort of really impacts on breeding salmon and trout. And so the solution we came up with was to block the ditch where it ran straight beside the hedge there, and divert the water this way into this pond, so any heavy sediment will fall out, and then it will then sit down. But it's, you know, turned into, as well as being so many issues in the river, amazing wildlife habitat as well. Yeah, thousands of tadpoles.
There's thousands of tadpoles here, isn't there?
The dragonflies hunting. You know, occasionally you see hobbies hunting the dragonflies. The swallows and martins love swooping back and down. Yeah. And in the evening you get the bats doing the same.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
Because, yeah, basically water attracts all the insects and everything else. It's sort of part of it. And also you then got the water backing up here, so this has become much more boggy. Got these lovely piles of sphagnum sort of growing up through. So it's another sort of. Really nice.
And your dogs love it as well.
Oh, the dogs always love coming down here.
Especially if it's this hot. It's amazing how you can do these little projects, but how they can change the way that this landscape is, and the animals and the insects that it can attract. Small changes have big positive impacts, don't they?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work throughout the farm, is trying to basically slow the flow of water leaving the farm. It's partly reduce the risk of flooding downstream and sediments going into the river, but also it's habitat creation. You know, marsh artillery butterfly loves these, needs this boggy, rough grassland, the Rhôs pasture. So we've been able to extend that into new parts of the farm.
It's absolutely teeming with life.
Yeah, and it just gives us a lot of pleasure. Just seeing everything.
It's nice. It's really beautiful.
So
right, shall we carry on and see what else we can see then?
Yeah.
Come on. You coming?
You coming, dogs? Coming.
We'll return to my chat with Mark a bit later in this episode. We will visit one of his favourite parts of Challacombe Farm, a place I could spend all day at. First though, I'm going to visit an area that is steeped in historical significance. My walk to Scorhill starts at Batworthy Corner near Chagford Common. It's another beautiful afternoon with excellent visibility. In the distance I can see Roos Tor. It doesn't look too far from here. As I set off for Scorhill down, I feel fortunate that I wore my welly boots. My route takes me along the border of the Batworthy estate. It's not long before I'm dropping down to the North Teign River and my first point of interest. I'm standing above the North Teign River. There's quite a lot of water in it at the moment. It has been raining an awful lot over the last few weeks. But it's not the river or the water level that I'm particularly interested in here. It's this bridge here. These are known as clapper bridges, made of these two massive slabs of rock here, supported by a central pillar. Outstanding bits of early engineering. I believe they date back to around the 14th century. Quite the thing, and I guess they have to be quite sturdy to live a life up here on Dartmoor. But there's another two around here. There's one down there and there's one over there. Let's go and take a look. Hey, the sun's out again. You only have to wait 5 minutes in Dartmoor for the weather to change, don't you? So this is Willowbrook, and this is a slightly different bridge. It's only a few metres down from the other one I was just standing on, but as you can see, this one is obviously a sort of a single piece or single slab of rock. This thing must weigh tons. How they got this into position, I don't know. But Willowbrook flows down there and just joins up with the North Teign River there, where there's another bridge. So maybe we can take a look at that one. I'm above the North Teign River again, and I'm on a slightly different style of clapper bridge again. This one consists of these two strips, I guess, of rocks in a single span across the water. I didn't realise there were so many different types or designs for clapper bridges, so it's been really a bit of an eye-opener to come here and see such variation in such a small area. Now, I'm not sure what this metal work here is for. I suspect it's some sort of structural reinforcement for the bridge. But so much to find in such a small area. But yet, there's still another couple of things I've yet to discover. Come on. Hopefully you can hear me over the roar of the water. There is so much water coming down the river at the moment. It is very noisy. But the reason I've come down here is I wanted to show you that rock down there, the one with the hole in it. Hopefully you can just about see it. Now, I didn't fancy taking my tripod and camera down there, so I've really been down for a wander with my mobile phone. I've taken some video footage with it there, just to give you an idea of what it is. Now, it's called a tolmen stone, and tolmen means hole in stone, which is pretty accurate for what it is, because it is a great big hole in a rock. And you can go down there and you can look down and you can see the river flowing below you. It's quite amazing. It really is. I think that probably has to be one of the coolest natural things I've seen in Dartmoor. I have to say that was hugely impressive. Quite the sight, but I've had to come up here just to get out the noise, just so you can probably hear me. But that isn't the only thing here that's quite exciting to see. There is another thing, probably the star of the show of this area, but it isn't the tor there behind me. It's just up over there. I wonder if you can guess what it is. Let's go and take a look. That's right, the star of the show is Scorhill Stone Circle. Dates back to 2,500 BC, and it is a very impressive site, I have to say. I think I counted them right, 23 standing stones here, and then you've got this massive one here at 2.5 metres tall. But there's something about coming to these places now that I find exciting. I never thought I'd ever say that about any sort of prehistoric site on Dartmoor, but it just shows you how Discovering Dartmoor has opened my eyes. And there's something quite magical about being here, especially on a beautiful autumn evening like this. The sun's just dipping down below the horizon there, and it just feels a bit special being here. But I think I'm about done here. I'm going to actually watch the sun dip below the horizon and soak up more of this atmosphere at this prehistoric site. I'll see you again soon. Clapper bridges, standing stones, stone circles and the tolmen stone. So much to discover in such a small area. Dartmoor just keeps on giving. Now, let's return to Mark and Challacombe farm, where we discuss the importance of hay meadows and how he is working with other Dartmoor farmers to make farming economically and environmentally sustainable. Well, I think we needed a rest, didn't we?
Yeah, there's a bit of a pull up that hill.
It's a bit of a pool and it's got really hot now, hasn't it?
Yeah. So.
But what a place to have a sit down. Where are we?
This is in one of our sort of best hay meadows,
yeah.
or species-rich hay meadows, because it's actually very good for fodder because there is so many flowers and other richness in here. But another field we sort of love, it's probably our favourite field on the farm, just the amount of diversity here from the orchids, the eyebright, the hay rattle, yeah, lots and lots of bits and pieces in here. And yeah, as a result, it's actually twizzling with insects and then birds and the swallows hunting over the top. Meadows like this have been lost, you know, I think less than 2% have been, survived since, the last over 100 years, because they've been improved in, to make them more productive. More fertiliser put on them, regular cutting, different species of grass which are more productive, so you can create more fodder. As a result, these habitats are now increasingly rare.
But you're working not just yourself to maintain these types of, or encourage these types of landscape, but you work as a collective, don't you, amongst a number of farmers?
Yeah, we set up a farm cluster group, which is a group of 10 farms within our catchment. Initially, we were sort of focused on conserving the marsh artillery butterfly and looking after Rhôs pastures, but now expanded that in terms of looking at how we can make all our farms more environmentally, but also economically sustainable. So sort of reducing the production side of things and making more space for nature, more hay meadows. So we're doing things like swapping seed from a good meadows to propagate the ones, and looking at ways we can basically make that economically viable. So in future there should be grants coming forward to that. So at the moment we're preparing ourselves to make sure we've got a really good offer about how we can create a landscape scale change, because the species, we don't want this farm to be an island. We want to work together.
The more people that are involved and the greater the impact, the more visible it becomes. And
the more resilient those species are, if they're not just one left in one little pocket. So there's lots we can do, I'm sure. It's just a case of getting our plans together and hopefully getting the funding in place to do it.
Because I've thoroughly enjoyed it here this morning, and to be honest, it's been a real eye-opener for me, because when I think of farming, I do think of cattle and I think of sheep, but the environmental work you're doing here with the meadows and the ponds and the way you're trying to encourage life to come back to these areas or to bloom in these areas is really encouraging. Now, you've written about some of the work that you do on your website, don't you? So there's lots of information about Challacombe Farm on the website, isn't there? Yeah,
and we welcome people coming through. I say we're mostly open access. We have various events through the year, guided walks, and if any groups want to come around, we're happy to do a tour for them. It's more people are going to enjoy it, appreciate it, understand it, the better.
I'll be sure to put your website address down below there. But that's also the place where you get information, but also where you sell some of the products that you make in the farm, isn't it?
Yeah, so main things of, as I say, of managing this landscape are the meat. It's all grass-fed, organic, and absolutely delicious because it's slow growing. So the texture is much better. We don't eat other people's meat, so we don't really compare about what everybody says, raves about it.
You're very proud of it, aren't you?
Yeah, proud of what we produce. You know, proud of this, you know, around us, and proud of the animals. You know, we have a good life. Yeah, and the other thing is, you know, trying to make the most of every animal as well is the sheepskin.
Well, what do people buy the wool for?
We've got sort of their selection of sort of spinners who will buy a fleece once we've done the shearing, or they'll come and come along and say, oh, can we have that sheep and it'll be sheared, you know, as they come. But just as amazing, you know, huge amount of work, and we just love seeing what they make at it, because you know the whole spinning and then knitting and or felting. So all sorts of wonderful. But it's just such a lovely soft wool, and all sorts of colours as well. Because one of actually the Shetlands, they come in everything from
I saw
white,
there,
black,
they're all
brown,
different colours,
spotty.
Oh, it's great. Well, yeah, like I say, I'll put the website address up there, so I encourage everyone to go and have a look, buy some meat, buy some wool, and then learn more about this absolutely fantastic farm. And I know these dogs are having a lovely time, because you've been our companions all day today, haven't you? Yeah. You've been loving it, haven't you? Especially in the pond.
Yeah, I like the pond.
Mark, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I think, well, we'll maybe just sit here a bit longer and enjoy this. Yeah. Fantastic. And see your house over there and the rolling hills. Yeah. What a spot to end.
It is a great view from up here. So.
Fantastic. I loved my time in Challacombe Farm, and I have to thank Mark for taking the time to talk to me and to share all his knowledge and insights. It's fascinating stuff. Please do take the time to visit his website for more information. Okay, time for one more location in this episode, and this time we're going to head to the Teign Valley near Castle Drogo, where I see everything from mist to an early hydro power station. Good morning and welcome to the Teign Valley. Now, the area of the Teign Valley that I'm exploring this morning runs from Fingle Bridge down there, which we're all going to have a look at later on, down to about Castle Drogo there, which you can just about see in the distance. Now, it is an area that I'm somewhat familiar with. I often bring my dog here for walking, but it doesn't mean I don't think there are some new things to discover. Got the woods down there in the lovely autumnal colours, got a bit of mist there lying in the valley, and I've just going to be a few minutes away from that sun rising and hopefully illuminating the scene. But while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to take in this view, because what a view! Welcome back. You may notice I'm on a slightly different viewpoint now. That's because back up there where I was on Pew Tor, I could see down the valley, and I could see that the mist was starting to clear now that the sun was coming up. So I thought I'd make a mad dash down Hunter's Path to this location here, Hunter's Tor. And I tell you, the view did not disappoint. The mist was glorious. It was coming in and out, revealing parts of the woodland and then disappearing again. You could see houses or trees or birds, and it was just a magical sort of half an hour or so as I captured video and took photographs. Truly was well worth getting up in the morning and being rather cold, because it is a pretty chilly morning this morning. But I'm done for the upper part of the valley. I'm now going to head down the path into the woodlands and along the river to see what else we can discover. I've made it down the path, and you can see I've got the River Teign here, and I'm in this beautiful woodland. Not much light down here at the moment. The sun hasn't reached that, and I can feel the temperature difference, I have to say. So I've got options here. I can cross this bridge here, and I can take the forester's path along to Fingle Bridge, or I can stay this side and I can take the fisherman's path. and I'm going to take the fisherman's path because I believe it offers me some better views of something I want to show you. Let's take a look. Well, just look at that. A weir has been built here on the River Teign, and all the energy of that water is flowing over the top there. Now, if you think about water and you think about energy, you might have an idea of what I'm going to show you, but I'm going to tell you more about it down there because it's hell of a noisy down here. I've come a little bit further downstream. It's a lot quieter here. It was very noisy at that weir with all that water. And as I indicated there, water also means power. And that building there behind me, believe it or not, is a hydroelectric power station. It was originally built in the 1920s to give power to Castle Drogo just up on the hill there. Quite forward thinking for its time. Hydroelectric power schemes weren't exactly common there. And it ran for a number of decades until it eventually broke down. But by that point, Castle Drogo was on mains electric, so there was no need to have it working again. That was until the National Trust came along and they now manage Castle Drogo, and they also built a visitor centre. And what they decided to do is to get that power station working again, and it now feeds power to that visitor centre up there. So when you go up there for your cream tea, you know that the power to run the ovens and boil the water actually came from the river down here. It's really cool. I mean, like I said, I mostly walk down the Forester's Path, so I've come past here and had a look at that building, or actually even cared to think what that building is. But now that I know, it's really interesting. Anyway, I'm going to take a little bit of a further walk down there. I think the next stop's possibly going to be Fingle Bridge. Well, it looks like I've got a few steps to climb, but the reason I've actually stopped is just to tell you, this ridge of rock that's coming down here that I'm going to go up these steps for, it's actually the bottom end of Sharp Tor, where I started my journey this morning. Pretty cool, eh? Welcome to Fingle Bridge, believed to be built in the 13th century to allow pack horses to cross the river that would be transporting goods. And in case you're wondering, these little inlets here, these will allow pedestrians to get off the main part of the bridge as the pack horses came through. There's two here and there's two on the other side there as well. But what a stunning bridge it is, in a stunning location in this glorious woodland. But do you know what my favourite bit about finishing here at Fingle Bridge is? There's a pub there behind me, so I'm going to go and get a drink. I think I deserve it. See you in a bit. Thank you for watching episode 4 of Discovering Dartmoor. Coming up in episode 5, the final episode, I visit a tor surrounded by barbed wire, I see some truly unique geology, I talk with Max Piper and visit an LKT, and I finish the series at Yes Tor. But before you go, if you want to support Discovering Dartmoor, remember the best way you can do so is by clicking on that like button, leaving a comment and sharing the video. It would mean the world to me if you told everyone you know about this series. And remember to check out discoveringdartmoor.com, where you can order the Discovering Dartmoor zine or order prints to hang on your wall. You'll also find information on the talk that I've written about the photography and film production of Discovering Dartmoor. So if you have a camera club or a group that would like to know even more about this series, then there's a contact form there as well. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Well, that's it from the episode 4. I'll see you next time for the final episode of Discovering Dartmoor.